The opinions expressed in the following programs are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of Rogers nor Rogers TV.
Welcome to Modern Business, the show that bridges the gap between viewer and entrepreneur. I'm your host, Taylor Bursey, and today we are joined by Jasmine Rutschmann of Jasmine Rutschmann Metal Art in Port Perry. Welcome to the show, Jasmine.
Thank you for having me.
You are so welcome. So tell me, what is Jasmine Rutschmann Metal Art?
So my mission is to be a creator of beauty, love, and art for myself and others. So that's where my tagline, Soul on Fire, comes from, because I use pieces of my soul and fire to create what I do.
That's very cool. And how did you get started in this?
So my dad's a welder, and he actually showed me how to use the tools in his shop, and I applied them towards art.
That's amazing. And had you been welding before then, or how did you decide to pick up the torch and get going?
I hadn't been welding before then. I had been around my dad's metal shop since I was a kid. Actually, one of my first memories is him coming up to me and telling me, "Don't look at the blue light, don't look at the blue light." So I always had wondered what that blue light was about, and I had to find out more. And that's when one day I went out to my dad's welding shop with him and we worked on a piece together.
And what was that piece?
So that piece was a butterfly. And I created that because I had a friend who really loved handmade items and gifts, and I wanted to make something unique and original, and that inspired me to create my first piece.
And when you talk about creating pieces, how do you get the material to create the pieces? Are you grabbing scrap metal? Are you buying new metal? How does it work?
So anywhere and everywhere. When I first started, my dad told me, "You're not using new material to practice on, go to the scrap bin and pick from there." And I started to go to the scrap bin and find these different items and realize it's very interesting, the art I was able to create with them, whether it was a shovel or a saw. And I started to think about what else is out there that's old and metal that I could use to work on. And for me, it evolved because then I started to realize reclaimed materials are better for the environment. They have a unique story to each one of them, and people are very intrigued when they see, an old saw that's become a tree.
Right.
But they may not notice that it's a saw and then come to the realization, and that's one of my favorite parts of my art for me.
Absolutely, and what a great way to, I guess we could call it, recycle. How many people just have old saws and old metal materials just sitting in their garage that are kind of wasting away? You're repurposing.
Exactly, and I actually do a lot of custom work, so if people have an old saw or shovel, they're able to bring it into me and I can do a custom design for them. And then they have a unique piece that maybe was in their shed, but it was used by their grandfather before, that they're able to take and put in their home as a showpiece, and now that saw reminds them of their grandfather.
That's beautiful. Now, I'm not fully versed on welding, but I believe there's a machine called a CNC machine. Is that what you use to create your pieces?
Absolutely not.
Oh.
For me, I use a handheld plasma cutter, so I don't use any CNC machines or computers in my work. Everything is one of a kind and handmade. So I freehand my design right onto the material, and then I use a handheld plasma cutter to go over it.
Wow. And what other kind of materials do you use to create this work?
So, as you can see here, I have shovels and saws, but wheelbarrows, oil tanks, anything old and metal that's not galvanized. I have instrument pieces I've done as well.
So when you're creating the design, I'm assuming you're drawing it on with chalk or some kind of light pencil, and then you're welding it yourself. Do you do any grinding or any polishing as well, or how does that work?
Yes, I will clean up a piece before or after, depending on what it is. For example, paint cans, I have to clean them out properly so that I can use them. And then shovels and saws, I'll grind them off, and then I finish them with a clear coat as well. And I have found for drawing on metal that a chalk paint pen works the best, because I've used chalk, but when I was plasma cutting, because it's air pressure and electricity coming out, the air would start blowing off the chalk and I'd lose my design. So the pen works great because it comes off with water.
So in that instance where you would maybe lose your design, did you just freehand it from there, or did you stop and have to draw it back out?
I stopped and drew it back out. I know some people ask me, do you just go freestyle right onto it? Usually I'd like to have a design first so I know what the piece is going to be. But I have attempted it like that before, where I just start plasma cutting, but I always find out if I have a plan before, it usually turns out a little better.
So take us to the moment where you figured out you had a business. When did you decide to market this and make it what it is today?
So I was in high school, and I had started creating my pieces and taking pictures of them, and I showed my high school business teacher, Mr. Bailey, some photos, and he asked if I'd ever thought about selling my work. At that time I hadn't. So he introduced me to building youth capacity, which had me develop a business plan, and then I did a pitch competition from there to get funding towards my business, and I participated in summer company as well.
So talk to us about the pitch competition. What was it like pitching your idea to, I'm assuming, established business professionals?
Yes, it was a panel of established business professionals. It was nerve-wracking because I'd never really done any public speaking before, and all of a sudden I was expected to go up in front of a crowd and talk about my passion and talk about what I wanted to do. And at that time my business plan was a little different than it is now, because I'd went to my first art gallery to try and showcase my work, and I was turned down for being too young and unestablished. So I realized there was a need in our community for an art gallery that showcased young artists, and I created the Golden Gallery from that.
So what was the Golden Gallery?
So it was a space for young artists to come and display their work, and that's the business I ran through summer company. Just as it sounds, it was for an 8-week summer program the year after grade 12 in high school.
Okay, and then summer company ends, the Golden Gallery is up in the air. What happened to it?
I started to get into more art shows. I started creating more work and realized I needed a bigger space to showcase. That program had ended, so my business definitely pivoted to be more Jasmine Rutschmann art than the Golden Gallery, but the space is still there, and now I showcase my own work. And sometimes I will have other artists showcase with me. I was on the Lake Scugog studio tour where an amazing artist, Catherine Polak, she showed her work, and it was a great experience.
That sounds like a cool collaborative initiative there. What was it like when you transitioned from a group studio to a solo studio? Was it nerve-wracking, exciting, all of the above? How was it?
All of the above. There was a lot of different things I had to consider now because I was taking my art more seriously. I was looking into promoting my own work, and it was really an exciting time, but I never closed myself off to if someone had said that they wanted to showcase their work, I would try and help them in any way that I could to find a space to display.
So during that initial transition, how did you originally market your work? How did people find out about you?
Originally, it was a lot of word of mouth and going to different art shows in the area and talking to people one-on-one about my work, which was an incredible experience because I love sharing what I do. And it evolved to now be more e-commerce on my website and as well as social media.
Talk to us a little bit about social media. What do you do to showcase your work on there?
So I've started to create different videos. I'm finding TikTok really has been great for my business, and I'll bring people behind the scenes of what it actually looks like to create a piece. So my drawing process, I'm recording that. I'm recording me actually plasma cutting. I've done a few live videos which have been fun where I'm totally geared up and working in the shop and people are watching, so that's been fun.
And if people want to follow you on social media, where can they find you?
It's Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok, Jasmine's Metal Art, and Jasmine Rutschmann Art on Instagram.
Amazing. Now talk to us a little bit about e-commerce. That's a big battle, especially when you're used to doing the in-person, face-to-face communication. Talk to us a little bit about getting started. Did you just wake up one day and go, I'm going to make a site and sell my art there?
So I actually went to school at Durham College for a small business and entrepreneurship program. And when I was in that program, they talked about how important it was to have a good website, an e-commerce site, one where people could find my work and buy off of it if they wanted to. So I started to develop it while I was in college and then kept going with it after, uploading different pieces and continuing to share my work in that way.
I imagine because these are unique, one-of-a-kind pieces, there's a little bit more work to it than just uploading a photo. Walk us through what happens when you put an item on your site.
So I'll have to photograph the item and then upload a description, whatever the story is behind that piece. And it really varies because I've done quite a few tree saws, but for other pieces, like my Soul Connection piece where there's a real story behind it, that will change how I actually go about uploading and what I say about the piece.
And I imagine because they're hand created by you, they're an extension of your soul, your love and connection, right? How do you price that? How do you put a price tag on it?
It is difficult to price work. Over time you learn how much time does something take you, but it's more than that because it is like you said, it's like parts of my soul that I'm using to create. So it's the inspiration behind it, it's the design, it's the time it takes to conceptualize what you actually want to do with something that you found, and the time to create, clean it up, grind it off, finish the piece completely, list it, photograph it. Quite a few steps involved. So in summary, it's the time, but also what you do. So.
And I believe when we were talking a little bit behind the scenes, we won't tell everyone that, but you said that it's a little bit different for the type of design if you're doing letters versus straight lines and stuff like that too. So do you have a standard baseline for that?
I do, because everything's one of a kind. So is the way that I would price a piece in a way that I do have a baseline, but it varies because if you wanted more details, that's going to take me longer to do. Whereas if you wanted something more simple, it's not going to be as long, or as much, sorry. But for line drawings and things like that, they're more difficult. They may look like it would be easier, but that's more challenging than, let's say, a shovel where you have a bigger area that you're cutting out. If I mess up a flower on a piece, maybe not so big of a deal, but if I mess up a letter because someone wants a word, they're gonna notice, so right. It takes more time.
I love that. We'll be right back with Jasmine.
Closed captioning is brought to you in part by Raven Reads. Unbox Indigenous voices. Subscribe today at ravenreads.org.
Hello, I'm Jonathan Van Bilsen for Photos and Travel, where we bring the world to your doorstep. Traveling during this pandemic is virtually at a standstill. However, thanks to Rogers and YouTube, my new show Photos and Travel is heading into its second season. Join me for a new episode every month when we get together and explore exotic locales around the world. Check local listings for dates and times or search Jonathan Van Bilsen's Photos and Travel on YouTube.
Hello, I'm Rob MacArthur, host and co-producer of Helping Durham Region. Join us as we shine the spotlight on Durham Region residents that are making a difference by helping other residents. That's Helping Durham Region, only on Rogers TV Durham.
Hello, I'm Judith Tate, host and producer of At the Heart of Business. Join me each week as we get to know women in business and learn all about their challenges and successes. That's At the Heart of Business right here on Rogers TV.
I'm Nicole Martin, the proud ambassador for the Comfort Bear program. Comfort Bears provide these cuddly bears to local children who are terminally ill, facing trauma, or battling a serious illness. Every $20 donation will place a Comfort Bear into the loving arms of a child involved in our program. It is our hope to distribute 1,000 bears in 2022. Please join us and provide comfort to kids in their time of need.
And we're back with Jasmine Rutschmann of Jasmine Rutschmann's Metal Arts in Port Perry. Welcome back.
Thank you for having me.
No problem. So we left off talking about e-commerce, your e-commerce site, what you're doing to upload your materials onto the site and display them for sale. Talk to us a little bit about the process once somebody purchases a piece off your website. How did you know how to ship it and send it out?
So that was a learning curve for me, because when I first started getting online orders, all of a sudden I have this heavy metal piece, awkwardly shaped, that I need to ship and figure out how to send out. So I was finding boxes, and I started to realize very quickly it's very expensive. I need to figure out a better way to ship. And I was in a friend's warehouse. Their father has a business, and I was able to see that they use corrugated construction corrugated cardboard to ship certain items. And I thought that would work for me, because then I could wrap it and just customize it to each piece that I have, and it'd be a lot lighter. So that's how I've learned to ship as well, with bubble wrap to protect the piece, and then the corrugated cardboard around it.
That's very cool. Were there any other little challenges that you didn't foresee arising that did arise when you started e-commerce?
I think just it was surprising the amount of time that it actually took to set up the website. And I also realized that I needed to separate having a portfolio as an artist for people to go and view my pieces, and an e-commerce store where I actually have pieces available for sale. So I have jasminesmeller.com, which is my portfolio site, and then I have my Square site that actually sells my pieces from. So.
And how do you keep up with inventory demand? I know you do custom work where somebody can come to you with an item and you'll make a beautiful creation from it. But if somebody just wants to browse your site and buy some saws, let's say, how do you forecast how many saws you need on hand?
That's a good question. It definitely varies, but now that I've been doing it, I kind of know what my sales will be and how many saws I will need. I've also been very fortunate because people have heard that I'm doing this and they realize they have a box of old saws in their shed, and I'll come home to my studio sometimes and I'll find a box of saws or shovels there donated by people. So that is just wonderful to keep my stock going.
That is wonderful. And earlier you mentioned that sometimes it takes a lot of time, and time is a commodity. And especially when you are the artist, I'm sure you don't have an abundance of it. So do you have a team behind you that's helping you fuel your business, or how are you working behind the scenes?
I would love to build a team in the future. Right now it's been very focused on me actually creating the pieces. So I've been responsible to go to the shop and get the pieces done and get the work done, because it is a piece of my art. But my family and friends have been incredibly supportive. If I have an art show, I have friends offer to come down and help me set up, take down, whatever I need. So I feel very grateful to have very supportive people in my life.
No kidding. That is wonderful. And when you're at these art shows and putting things forward and stuff, do you ever sit there and think, okay, if I'm going to hire somebody, this is what I'm going to get them to do? Or how do you envision your business moving forward in the future?
I would love help with e-commerce, actually listing the pieces, so I had more time to just create pieces and go out to the shop. So an assistant in that way, as well as actually applying to shows, because I have what I want to say written down already. It's just the actual applications do take time. So having an assistant to help with that aspect of the business would be wonderful.
So when you apply to an art show, you have to pitch yourself to the people who are organizing the show?
So I like the word pitch. There's an application process that happens with any of the art shows that I'm involved in, where there's a jury who sits and looks at your work and decides if it's of quality enough to get into the show. So that is it's a juried show. So that's part of the process, and you have to apply and you have to be juried in.
Wow, I did not know that. Is that nerve-wracking going through that process?
Definitely, because there's times where you wonder what happens if you don't get into a show. But my business has definitely changed a little bit, because now you have social media, you have other ways of promoting your work that maybe weren't available to people a few years ago.
And when you're promoting your work on social media, is it all organic? Is it paid? How are you doing that?
For the most part, it's been all organic. I'll post a piece, and an hour later I might have someone direct messaging me, hey, how much is that piece? I want to buy it. And I've sold quite a few pieces that way. So when you talk about inventory, it is sometimes challenging, because I'll create something and it's instantly bought or sold. And yeah, it's a great feeling, but I'm like, oh, I love my art, I want to enjoy it. But it means the world to me that there's people out there who would actually want to display it in their home as well. It's just an incredible feeling.
I can see it in your eyes right now.
Yeah.
Have you ever been completely wiped out of inventory? Somebody's just bought your whole collection?
That did happen in my early years. Actually, Willow Tree Farm has been an amazing supporter of my work. Wow. They placed an order that completely took all of my inventory, and that was great. Actually, I did their sign as well if you ever drive by.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
So when they purchased your entire inventory, was that the moment where you sat and went, okay, I need to make sure that I have stock for my shows and my site versus creating as you maybe felt compelled to create?
That's a good question. Yes, that was the first time that had happened, and I was not expecting that, but it's a great problem to have. It's just an opportunity to create more and think about, okay, well, now I know these pieces of work are popular, and I want to create more of those.
And do you have a piece of work that's been your most favorite piece?
Yes.
Tell us about it.
There's an oil tank on the front yard of my studio called Burning Ships, and it has a mermaid on it and a large ship in the distance. And for me, the story really is, I heard about, if you want to take the island, you got to burn your boats. You got to decide and fully commit to doing that. So when I did that piece, that was the inspiration. I knew this is what I wanted to do, and I needed to fully commit, and I went for it. And it's been challenging, it's been fun, it's been sad at times. There's so many different emotions that go into actually being an artist and selling your work. But at the end of the day, it's so worth it because I'm following my passion and I'm getting to see people view my work and light up. But that, for me, is incredible.
And now that you have quite a few years under your belt as a business owner, selling your art, parting with your beloved creations, did you sit down and make a plan for what the future is going to look like for your business, or how are you navigating that?
Yes, I'm always planning. I'm always thinking about what I can do differently or how I can expand in the future. So I definitely want to apply to more galleries, get more representation in that way and develop my professional side of my name for art. And also want to build my social media more, continue to post videos, continue to hopefully inspire people to follow what sets their soul on fire.
That is amazing. And I think you as an artist and as a business owner is inspiring because you've merged the world of business with trades and your creativity. How did that happen? Did you get any formal education in those three avenues?
My dad, like I said, he was a really big impact, but I also that's three generations. My Oppo was a millwright by trade as well as a welder. My father's a welder. And just growing up in that environment, I was exposed to it at an early age. And I don't know, my dad just always was open with teaching me, and he's been such an incredible role model in my life, and I feel very grateful and lucky to have the father that I do because he taught me so much of what I know, and he's the reason I even got into metalwork. If I hadn't been in my family, I wouldn't be doing what I am today, so I feel lucky.
That is incredible. And on the business side, did you receive any education for that?
Yes, so I went to Durham College for Small Business and Entrepreneurship, got my diploma in that. Jay Fisher, he was an amazing prof, taught me a lot about business and how to run it. And I knew after high school, after going through Building Youth Capacities program, entrepreneurship is what I wanted to do. And before that time period, I didn't even know it was an option. So for them to come in and educate students, that was a very powerful program to have.
Sounds like it. So you've spoken about your dad kind of teaching you the trade and teaching you how to merge your passion with your, I guess we'll call it hardware, if you will. Do you give him artist credits on your work, or how does that work? Does he get any credit?
He's hilarious because he'll be like, I taught her everything she knows. And he's not wrong when it comes to the metalwork, but he always jokes he can't draw a good stick man. Okay. That's his words. And so for art-wise, I think I'm definitely self-taught. I learned a lot of it on my own and from YouTube tutorials and how to draw. But I'd always been into drawing. As soon as I combined it with metal, that was when my dad was like, yeah, this is actually really cool. I can get behind this. I like it.
That is very cool. Now, do you have a trade tip for our audience today, a piece of advice, something that somebody's told you, a piece of advice that you want to give the world, anything like that?
Yes, so for me, it's to always follow your heart and really figure out what you love or enjoy doing. And if you can build a business around that, that is truly when you'll find the most inspiration, and you'll be able to dig deep and keep going when times are challenging, because there will be hard times and things that you face. But if you know in your heart that's something you care about and you're passionate about, you'll find a way to follow through and continue with it. So.
And have you created a piece on that tip there?
So like on
your trade tip there, has that inspired a piece?
Yes, it has actually. I've started my anatomy series, so that is actually different parts, and I did a heart, and that's for me. That it's like an anatomical heart that I created that was inspired by using that heart to create something.
And what did you create the heart from?
Pieces of my soul and.
I mean, what piece of material?
Oh, sorry. That one was from just scrap pieces of steel I had, so it wasn't.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's very cool. Now talk to us about a few of the pieces you have here today.
So these pieces, for the most part, are from reclaimed items. I'd like to speak to this one because I think it's very interesting. This bottom part, actually, my dad, his welding business was casters, wheel casters. So this, when he retired, he had a few extra parts, and I asked if I could have them, and he said yes. So I used it to weld on this tree, which was from scrap pieces of custom work, like my offcuts from there. So combining the reclaimed with something my dad had used for his business was interesting.
That is very cool. And do you put your signature on your work? How does that work?
Yes, for the most part, I do sign my pieces. On this one, you can see I put JR, so you know it's one of my pieces.
Original creations.
Yes. And the reason I did that is because when I first started, I had people coming back and saying, you didn't sign this piece. How will people know that you made it? So I realized I need to sign my pieces or people will come back and ask for that. So.
Wow. Wow. And talk to us a little bit about the paint cans. Those are incredible.
The paint can candle holders are really fun, and I have it displayed with a pillar candle as well as tea lights. But I find the lower the candle is, the more of the design you actually get projecting on the wall. So it is one piece during the day and a different piece at night.
Incredible. Now, Jasmine, if people want to order your art or get to know you a little bit better, where can they find you?
My website's jasminesmetalart.com. It links to my e-commerce site, as well as my social media pages, Jasmine's Metal Art on Facebook and TikTok, and Jasmine Rutschmann Art on Instagram.
Amazing. Jasmine, thank you so much for joining us today, and we'll catch up with you soon. That's been another edition of Modern Business with me, Taylor Bursey. We'll talk to you next time.
Call the Rogers TV viewer response line, email us, or connect with us on social media.
Hey, do you like movies? You know I do. That's why I see all of them. And if you want to know which ones you should see too, check out the latest